It's Monday and time for the Back to Business podcast, featuring Calgary's industry leaders. Welcome today's show host, Kim Hayden.
Today we're going to get the buzz on the bees with Herman Van Reekum. Super excited to learn how AI plays into beekeeping. But first, our land acknowledgement.
In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Ga'aina, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Eahe Nakota Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
All right, welcome to the show, Herman. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Kim. Thanks very much for having me.
I am super excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. This is awesome.
Excited to be here.
Yeah.
I like.
Pardon
I've
the pun,
never.
yeah.
I know. So before we get down and really dive deep into what you're doing, because you're doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
I'd love to know a little bit more about who is Herman. Get that kind of backstory.
Sure. Well, my parents came from Holland, and I was born in Canada. I grew up in Calgary, so I've lived here most of my life, which is a long time. And I grew up in Southwest Calgary, went to the University of Calgary, worked primarily in immigration. For about 30 years, I was an immigration officer, and I had an immigration company, and sold that in 2015. And when I sold it, a friend of mine, who's actually my IT guy, I said, "Hey, sorry, the company's been taken over. You don't have a job anymore." He said, "That's okay. I'm going to become a beekeeper." And that's a great idea. So my mother had been a beekeeper when I was young. So I remember going out to visit bees with my mom and helping her build beehives and looking after the bees and selling honey and that sort of thing. So I joined in with him. His name is Bill. And we became hobbyist beekeepers and done so many things with regard to bees and that sort of thing. It's just been a fascinating journey.
I love that. I love that it is a journey. I talk to a lot of young people, and they don't realize that they've got a 50-year span in front of them, and they can do anything and everything.
Yeah.
I want to dive a bit into bees. I've gone out to a couple bee farms.
Okay.
My girlfriend had hives in her backyard.
Yeah.
I know that we have hives up on the roof here at the CPC. Tell me a little bit about beekeeping and Alberta.
For sure. So to set the scene, Alberta so there's about 800,000 hives in Canada. Alberta has about 40% of the industry. So that'd be about 330,000 hives at any given time. And one of the reasons why Alberta is so prevalent in the beekeeping industry is that we have, in the Peace River country, a lot of hours of sunlight. And so a lot of honey gets produced up in that part of the country. But throughout the province, we have beekeepers who have as many as 15,000 beehives. The commercial beekeeping is like pretty big business in the agricultural realm. A lot of beekeepers are involved in pollination. A lot of the canola crops, for example, are pollinated through beekeeping. So it's become a very big industry relative to the rest of the country here in Alberta. And it's also very well organized. I would say there's an association that represents beekeepers, and they're pretty well educated. They're always doing research and looking for new ideas and that sort of thing.
That's interesting. I never thought about the canola crops because I also know we're a leading canola producer globally.
Totally.
And it never even dawned on me that we would have all these bees doing a large portion of that work for us.
Yeah.
My girlfriend talked about it was actually pretty hard to operate those hives.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize you have to feed the bees all winter and everything. So I know that you are looking at the tech side of beekeeping. So first of all, why are bees important? Because 10 years ago, remember we went through this huge scare where we
collapse,
saw, it was like Europe was it was just devastating.
It was.
So why are bees so important? And then I want to go into the future of bees.
For sure. Well, they're important, that you can think about 1 in 3 bites of food is a direct result of bee pollination. So 30% of the food that we eat is a result of bee pollination. So if we didn't have bees, 30% of the food would be gone. That's fundamentally why it's important. I mean, honey is nice. Everybody likes honey.
Yeah.
That's kind of a byproduct. But it's really about the pollination. And that's why they're so critical to our ecosystem.
Wow. 30%.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think it was Einstein, like he said that if there were no honeybees, mankind would have like 3 years or something like that. I don't know if that's his exact quote, but it's to draw attention to the fact that bees are that critical to agriculture, to producing food. And that's why we have, why it's such an important industry.
Amazing. So, let's talk about the buzz of the future.
Yeah.
I had to throw that in there. I had to throw it in there.
You had to.
See, because Alberta is showing up on the map as this real tech innovator
For sure.
on every front.
Yeah.
And I know that our ag industry here in Alberta, like we've got beef ag they're getting it right down to a science of, how to feed and how to care. And, there's all sorts of things. They're right to a science,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
What's going on in Alberta that you're doing around bees?
Absolutely. So the problem I'm trying to solve is bees dying, basically. Bees are, as you said, are threatened in so many ways through pests, through diseases, through pesticides, through climate change, through weather, extreme weather. And so the problem to solve is how do we keep bees alive? How do we sustain them all year round so that they're not dying in the winter? 2 winters ago, we lost 50% of our beehives in the country.
That's when my girlfriend's hives died.
That's when mine died. I mean, it's just so sad when you see that happening. And in mine specifically, I had them, they were good up until March. And then we had a cold snap in March and they're done. And so what I'm developing, specifically for what I'm doing is developing a thing called a bee cube, which is going to hold 24 beehives. It's like a small building, like a rig shack, like in oil industry terms. It would be insulated. It's going to have sensors in it that will tell beekeepers what's going on with their bees. So it'll measure the temperature, the humidity, the weight of the hives, the CO2 that they're producing, the sound that the bees are making. If a beehive loses its queen, if the queen dies, they almost they make a different noise, like they're crying. So you can detect through the sound of the hives, you can detect different conditions of what's going on with the beehives. So the BeeCube will have all these sensors, and the data will go back to us as a company, but also to a beekeeper on their phone or their computer, and they'll know remotely what's going on with their hives. And we're going to develop an AI with that as well. So we're working on developing AI to diagnose hive problems before it becomes a problem.
So you can become preemptive.
Yeah, and preemptive, exactly. And so beekeepers are they're living, say, in Red Deer, but they're pollinating crops in brooks, so they're 100 miles away from their hives, so they can know remotely what's going on with their hives. And you talked about the tech industry, and so I've been developing this now I've been thinking about this for about 3 years, but working on this specifically for about a year. And I've just been blown away by how much support there is for tech here in Calgary and in Alberta. There's a whole ecosystem around support for ag tech and for tech generally. Yeah.
Absolutely. We've got Alberta Innovates. We have Platform Calgary.
Yeah.
There's some crazy stuff happening here on every front. And I think that as Calgary itself moves forward, we know that here's the reality.
Yeah.
I am not getting on a solar-powered 747. Not going to happen, folks. So there will still always be, in my lifetime, need for petroleum.
Absolutely.
But the reality is most people don't know that our tech actually even extends to how we extract and how we, everything.
Absolutely.
Alberta has always been on a real front line of tech.
For sure.
So are you going to be part of any of the ag days or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm part of Platform Calgary. I'm part
awesome.
of Alberta Innovates has been incredibly supportive for me specifically, but I'm part of right now there's all these incubators I'm finding out there that there's these venture capital kind of, and so shout out to Thrive SVG. They're an incubator for a venture capital firm that helps startups like mine develop their businesses. And so this week I'm going to be at Olds College to do a presentation for people at the Smart Farm at Olds College, and then doing another presentation here in Calgary. So yeah, there's definitely an ecosystem. There's a lot of help out there for startups like mine, and it's definitely, I would encourage anybody who's thinking of a startup to reach out to like Platform Calgary or Alberta Innovates. There's a lot of support.
In a lot of larger cities with the high rises and the mandates for bringing those high rises into that ESG space, and so the environmental, the sustainable, and the governance aspects of getting those commercial buildings and such, we're starting to see the rooftop gardens and such.
Yeah.
Is that a place for where you would like to see the Bee Cube being able to be utilized in those types of spaces?
The Bee Cube might be too big. I'd have to probably develop a smaller version of it, but I think that's definitely a possibility. So my version, the initial version, are going to be for the farmers, for putting it out on a canola field or in an alfalfa field. But I see the opportunity to create smaller versions, and I think that's a great idea. So because of the sensors, because of the information,
exactly,
the beekeeper wouldn't have to be up on the roof all the time. They could know exactly what's going on. But if you could put 5 or 6 or 8 hives on a rooftop somewhere, you're giving me a good idea here, Kim. So,
well, I know that in New York, it is so.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking here because I also know that there's an entire initiative. 30% of commercial buildings are now what they call zombie buildings.
Right.
And these are boat anchors on our city centers. Sure. They're decimating our financial intake that supports all of our infrastructure. And a lot of these buildings, as they get reinvigorated, they get reutilized into something new and robust, like housing.
Yeah.
All of those mandates that we see, that your rooftops must have something green. They must contribute back. Yeah. I could see how something like this can become a central point.
Absolutely. I think bees would be a great addition to anything like that. And even great for the people that live in those buildings or work in those buildings. I've had bees in my backyard. Your girlfriend has had bees in her yard. And it's fascinating. Yep. Like you could sit there in an evening and watch the bees,
Yeah, it's way better than watching a freeway.
Absolutely, for sure.
It's the bee freeway. And I know that South Center Mall has a rooftop garden now.
Yeah.
So I just think, well, if you're going to have a communal garden, which is what we're really trying, especially with the cost of food and everything that's going on, every which way we can hack a better life.
Yeah, for sure. And make use of the space that we have.
Absolutely.
It's there. And it'd be a good environment.
Do I get a percentage of that idea?
For sure. Yeah,
we'll work on that together.
You bet.
We'll call it the Bee Mini Cube.
The Bee Mini Cube. There you go.
Bee Mini Cube.
The urban Bee Cube.
There you go. The urban Bee Cube. I like that better.
I do too, actually.
Yeah.
We're onto something here.
You heard it here, folks. If anybody would like to invest in this idea, just contact Herman. This is a great idea.
Absolutely.
We'll have all his contact information in the show notes.
Thanks,
Remember,
Kim.
I get a piece of this.
Okay, you got a piece of this for sure.
So in moving forward, so now you're conquering this, and we're seeing this really cool movement around where we would have thought people would be retired.
Yeah.
They're actually re-inspired.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I love this because there's, I know that there's a company here, and what they did is they call it a gray hair board.
Yeah.
And so they were able to really accelerate because they're taking everything that they learned in their past businesses and been able to avoid a lot of those pitfalls. What are some of the things that you learned in your past business that you sold that has helped you move faster on this initiative?
That's a great question. Just even surrounding myself with people, with great people. That's for me the starting point. That's how I built my other company. Is I had amazing employees, and there's nothing more empowering than hiring somebody who's really good and having them take over a piece of something that maybe they'll do it better than you. So that's number one for me, is just surrounding myself with great people. The other piece is thinking about cash flow. So cash is king in any business, and in a startup world, cash is not readily available because people are inventing something that maybe 2 or 3 years down the road is going to pay off for them. Well, you need some money to live on during that time. And so I've been thinking a lot about, the Bee Cube's a nice idea, but how can we generate cash quickly? And that's really what I'm focused on right now. So I'm anxious to get them out in the field and start producing honey, doing pollination, start earning some money so that we can fund the growth of the company partially through that. We're looking for investors, but partially that, because I think that's what I've learned is that cash flow is critical. It's the lifeline of any business. I think the third thing, I was always involved in immigration, so I was always working internationally with people from all over the world. Like I've traveled to many places many times and dealt with people from literally every country in the world. Today I was talking to somebody in France who's got a great idea for bees, and we said, yeah, let's collaborate on something. Let's see if your technology will work here in Alberta, because we have such a need here. And he said, yeah, maybe your sensor idea will work in France. And so that international focus is something that I've always brought to business, and I think it's such a strength of any business to yes, it's important to think locally and what can we do here to improve our lives and our economies, but there's a big world out there, and being part of that is really important.
So being part of a bigger world and the network. So I love how you brought in the fact that A, make sure you have the right people.
Mm-hmm.
B, you understand cash is king.
Yeah.
And 3, and the C,
Yeah.
B3, whatever.
Yeah.
Work with me, folks. Is that create your network.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Where does networking and that connectivity play within your business model when you're allocating those funds, those limited funds, while you're getting up and running? Where does that networking play within it?
It's everything. I spend most of my time networking with, first of all, the industry. There's the Alberta Beekeepers Commission is the organization that represents the industry. And through them, I've got connections to all of the beekeepers in the province. And through them also to scientists. I'm working with some scientists here in Alberta to develop how we can use the bee cube for specific ideas. So that's been important. And just also through this incubator that I'm in, it's based out of California, and so there's another 15 companies in it right now in my group, and they're in California, they're in England, so we're networking that, and so if I see something that they can do, or vice versa, we're talking about it. We'll all be together for the first time here in Alberta this week, so that's another piece of it, and just. Yeah, so using whatever levers I can to network with people is so critical.
I think that's one of the beauties of being a more mature startup, is that you've got so much that you can talk about, right?
Yeah.
You can relate on so many levels, and that's, I think, a real key to that connectivity, because have you ever read the book by Bob Berg, Know, Like, Trust? The
No,
Go-Giver?
No.
So Bob Berg coined a term that we all know back in the 90s, Know, Like, Trust, right?
Okay, yeah.
And he talks about how story can create relationship.
Yeah.
And not everybody that you meet is going to be highly interested in a bee.
Mm-hmm.
However, they may be interested in environmental aspects. They may be interested in, maybe they have a restaurant and they're interested in organic foods and things like this. And it's like, it's all an ecosystem.
It is, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And building up that ecosystem. That's what I discovered in when I took up beekeeping, when I sold my business, is that there's just so many vectors. There's just so many things that you can do in the world of beekeeping, even at a hobbyist level. You can collect the wax and make candles, and I love going to like farmers markets and selling honey at farmers markets. So we did some of that. During COVID, we had some honey that we started selling to our neighbors in our neighborhood because nobody could go out shopping. So we developed a brand of honey called bear bait honey. I had a couple of hives that were, destroyed by a bear.
Oh.
We
awesome.
developed this brand and we called it bear bait honey. And because it was really good, and so that sort of thing, being part of the community was really great. And I'm not doing the honey right now because I'm focused on the startup, but there's just so many vectors in beekeeping at a hobbyist level or at a professional level, and it's something too. We talked about, I'm of a certain age for sure, but young people, it'd be great if more young people were attracted to becoming beekeepers. It's maybe not the best known industry in agriculture. And that's why I think bringing technology to what I'm doing is going to attract people to, especially younger people, to becoming beekeepers. Because now we can develop AI. We're going to think about sensors and how the sensors are going to communicate.
Yep.
And how the signals are going to be processed. So I'm working with some students at the University of Alberta right now. They're engineering students, but they're helping me design part of my system. And I hope some of them are attracted to this industry because I think it's pretty cool.
I think you need to make a video game on keeping the bees alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole nother so we got the urban bee cube.
Yep.
Bee cube
There's
urban.
one. Yep.
There's one.
Yep.
And now we're going to do a video game on top of this.
Okay.
And if it makes a different noise, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So you can base it all off of keeping your bee.
There you
your
go.
Bee cube
See,
alive.
there's another whole
See,
vector.
there you go. Folks, you
We
can
should
invest in that one. Just remember. Oh my gosh!
Yeah, for sure.
My gosh!
They're just
and I totally agree. Getting younger people engaged, and I just think not a lot of people know about it. I only know about beekeeping because I interviewed the gal who does. I think it's ABC Bees.
Yes, yeah.
I interviewed her years ago, and my girlfriend had a beehive.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that? If we looked at Calgary, so I know that Calgary is going through this entire revitalized, Calgary, I'm so proud of this city. I'm proud of what Mark Garner's doing and Joe Cowley's doing, these city leaders that we have. To really revitalize and invigorate downtown Calgary so we become a mecca on every front, every month of the year. Yeah. What are some things that the city could do to engage more localized beekeeping and awareness?
Yeah. First of all, there's a really good shout out to the Calgary District Beekeepers Club. There's a club here.
There's a whole club.
They're very active.
I didn't know this.
Yeah,
This is awesome.
And I think if you just Google anyway, you can reach out to the club and join the club if you want to. And there's no end of people there that just love mentoring people in beekeeping. There's so much support. So that's the first thing. There's a really good store here that sells beekeeping equipment and even bees and everything. It's called Worker and Hive. I give a shout out to them. And so that's a couple of specific things. I think the city could perhaps encourage maybe more public spaces could be used for beehives. Spaces that maybe aren't a park. All you really need is 100 square feet of ground, maybe fenced off or something. And there's going to be some people that are going to be afraid of that. And so we need to be sensitive to that. But there may be more public spaces. I know there's a friend of mine has some beehives in a community garden here down in Inglewood. And I think that the gardeners appreciate having the bees to pollinate their vegetable gardens. And so it's a win-win.
I think the Dean House at one point in time had hot hives and such pre-pandemic.
Yeah, and what's pretty cool about that, I know you do that here at the CPC, is sell the honey that comes from your roof. Yep. And I think that's so cool. I mean, there's an immediate connection between the hives that are producing the honey and what
creates
people are
an
buying.
ecosystem within the club.
For sure.
The club, and that's what I really like about the club here is we have so many what I consider artisans within the club because it's not just a C-suite space anymore.
Right, yeah.
We're really creating an ecosystem between C-suite and entrepreneurial and bringing them together. Whereas I think Calgary's been very divided for a very, very long time. Yeah. And now we're starting to see that very organic blend between the kind of the two sectors of Calgary workers.
And it's really great, and that it's focused around the Calgary Petroleum Club is fantastic. Yeah. I mean, that's just a really good idea to bring in small business with the big business for sure.
I love what they're doing here. Where do you think? And this is going to be totally off the radar here. We're going way out in left field. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Because you've talked a lot about AI and technology.
I have, yeah.
And if you guys look at the date of this release, it will be a few weeks out from when I just watched 6 days ago. GPT just announced some new technologies. Yeah. So one is a mapping technology that can actually document, track, and map. And one is it's in beta, which is an assistant that can actually link and help track. So when I hear you talking about these hives and being able to literally be able to track the bee cube and speak to the bee cube, that's what's really cool. Is you're creating a language and an integration.
Absolutely.
How does these types of technologies play into the development and the future of what you're doing?
Well, it's fundamental. It's so fundamental, and it's what's really great. And I don't know if many people know this, but there's an organization in Alberta called the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, AMI for short, and they're based in Edmonton. They're part of the U of A, I believe, is how they got their start. And they are an organization that takes startup companies with an AI idea. I'm in the program right now. So they have this startup program. So if you've got an idea for using AI in your business, you can approach them, and they have 3 levels of support. So they go into the startup program where they teach you a lot about AI and how it could relate to your business. And then after that, they have a scoping exercise. So they'll work with you specifically, and there's some fees involved. And thirdly, if you want to go ahead with that, then you can hire somebody through their organization to help you develop the AI for your company. So just to your point, I think that AI is being recognized as such an important part of any technological development here. And I think it's almost like some people say it's like the invention of the internal combustion engine or something. Like the AI is going to change the way I was on AI this morning, kind of coming up with some ideas for things. And I signed up for the $20 a month version, I have to confess, but I've got my money back already just through things that it's helped me do.
For GPT?
Yeah.
Yeah. The new Ford Turbo that they just announced 5 days ago. I just watched the entire release of that.
Yeah.
I watched it on Saturday, and poor Jackson, our producer,
Yeah.
I'm sending him stuff. Oh my God, look at this, at this, right? Because I believe moving forward, AI will enable us to better communicate, to reach further. And for those who are true creators, so it's interesting, they have this pyramid model of absolute creators, people who are creators and slight consumers, so they can actually integrate with the absolute creator.
Right.
So when we think absolute creator, think Elon Musk. This is somebody who just does not operate on any other stratosphere,
for sure,
but always within that creative space, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got, they say you've got 1% is absolute creation, and then you have 9%, which is this creation, but it's that pad where you're doing enough consumption that you understand the where to go with the creation,
with the ideas.
And then you've got 90% that is in the consumer space, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's why they're saying the network, that voice, is going to be so critical with growth. I think a lot of people are getting tired with stuff being shoved at them. They want to share it. They want to know more. That's why these like Amy and stuff, these different programs are so critical.
It goes back to your earlier point about how lucky we are in Alberta to have Alberta Innovates and organizations like this that can take those creative ideas and help people commercialize them. Like this province is going to be transformed through that kind of organization and through that kind of support.
Absolutely. And you were brought into the podcast by your marketing company that says,
correct.
You know what, you guys have to talk to Herman.
Yeah.
Herman's got the Bee Cube and now the Urban Bee Cube, and now we have a video game.
Yeah.
So we're doing it all, folks.
We're
doing it all.
We're growing every day.
On. So, and I'd like to shake your hand on that.
For sure.
Herman, I got a new company here, folks. Looking for investors.
We get the buzz.
But yeah, this is how networking works.
Absolutely.
This is how networking works.
It is, yeah.
Sure. And I think this is something that since basically kind of funnels came online in 2004, we've spent the last 20 years of this entire generation going, I'm just going to put something online and I'm going to be able to create these automated cells. Whereas I think now we're coming back around going, okay, we need to put the human element back in because we're being supported by the AI, by the technology. So my time goes twice as far.
For sure. Yeah. Just to illustrate, so I have 2 sons. They both know how to make websites, but they wouldn't help Dad make his website. So I kind of did this DIY version of it, and it's I'll improve it soon, I promise. But the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to get an image of a cube in a field of canola, and my sons know how to use Photoshop, but I don't, so that I could spend a day learning it. But I went to the
AI, Dolly.
Dolly.
Yeah.
And I said, draw me a picture of a cube in a field of
I
canola.
saw that. You
on my
dropped it
website.
into the folder. It's very cool. It's very cool.
So just, I saved myself hours of needless learning of,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. It's just so empowering. It's just so empowering that,
And I think it all comes down to say it still takes a human to come up with the concept, the solution. We are solution-oriented
Absolutely.
beings.
Yeah.
And finding all the tools to help us bring that to fruition.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm super excited,
Yeah.
and I can't wait to learn more about the Bee Cube and see. I know that in 5 years' time, with the way everything's moving, we're going to have urban bee cubes to go up on rooftops so we can have more sustainable food and better environments for people to live in. Thank you for joining us today,
It was my
Herman.
pleasure. It was absolutely a lot of fun. I really enjoyed meeting you, and thanks for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today on the Back to Business podcast. Be sure to visit calpeteclub.com, CALPETECLUB.com, to find out more about upcoming events, networking opportunities, and membership. If you are not already a valued member at the CPC, where we are proudly connecting and supporting Calgary's business leaders.